Well. Welcome to Women's Tennis Talk. Believe it or not, we are on. And guess who? I am Sophie Amiach, very selfishly selling my name first. And we are with...
Bonjour, it's Sue Thearle here in London. You're on Cape Cod, I believe, at the moment. Sophie, it's so good to see you. How on earth have you been?
Oh, well, I think that there are a lot of people much more miserable than us. So that's first what I want to say. And, thanking all the people who have been in the front line and helping us, survive this crisis. But it's been tough. And, for me, coronavirus, yes, very difficult seeing, the devastation around. But unfortunately, I think the last time we were trying to have a podcast was March 27th. And unfortunately, my mom passed away on April 4th. Very difficult battle with Alzheimer.
I'm so sorry, Sophie.
I mean, it's, and what's horrible is, it's that I was not able to travel to France. I was in the US where I reside, and I was not able to travel to France and be by her side. So that has been, the most horrifying experience. I still trying to reconcile with the fact of not being, by your loved one. And we had such a great relationship with my mom throughout my life. So it's not being there for the last breath is very difficult. But she left me so much, and I am so lucky to have had, such a great mother. So I cherish her every day. And that's pretty much what I've been doing besides, grieving. And so ups and downs. But I've been busy otherwise. I've been busy because, first of all, it's the first time, I think, in my life that I have been in one place for more than 2 months or 3 months. It's crazy.
Really?
Yes, because of when I was playing on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Then even though I was teaching in different clubs, I still would go away, on weekends here and there, because I felt like I needed that travel time. It's like,
Yeah.
we nomads, tennis players are nomads. We have my home is always where I sleep. I make it my home because otherwise you go crazy and you miss it so much that it's difficult to have that kind of life. And then, in the last 10 years, commentating, same thing. You know as much as I do that. We live in a suitcase a lot of time. So
We do.
So I've been home, and I love the fact that, lucky me, I live in a beautiful Cape house in Connecticut throughout the year, and with my partner. And oh boy, April and May, the flowers. I never see it, because I'm at the French Open, so it's beautiful too. God forbid it's not it's not a bad life either to be in Paris, in April, May. But no, it was like spectacular. Then did a lot of work on myself. I think worked on the garden, work on the house. Always a project. Lately, I did some distance wine tasting, so that's been a lot of fun. So in all, great. As bad as it was, it's been a good experience, and I'm making it the best out of it. And I know you went through a lot yourself, because we were trying on the March 27th exactly to podcast, and when I tried, we were supposed to hook up that day. The message I got was not the greatest. So tell us what happened.
Well, again, I just want to say how sorry I am to hear what you have been through, because that has not been something that you would wish on anybody, and it's been tough, and I know it's been tough for you. And so I send you all my love as well as a result of that. But I went down with COVID. My husband and I both had it in March, just as it was locking down in the UK, and but I am very grateful that it was, the extent of it was just a couple of very uncomfortable, unwell weeks, and then maybe a week or two to kind of bounce back from that. But given what so many people have been through, I feel really grateful that I am healthy and well. And it's been strange as I sit here on the day that Wimbledon would be starting in the UK, just 9 miles from where I live. I would be sat on centre court right now this afternoon watching no doubt a sparkling order of play. So that it once again, if you ever need it, the fact that things are so upside down and topsy-turvy, it just contextualizes it once again. But I would say, tough though it's been the last few months for all of us who love tennis not to see much of it. It's just starting to creep back now. You know, the health has to come first, and I feel so sorry for people who've lost loved ones, and I'm so grateful for the help of the frontline workers, all of them all around the world, for keeping people safe or trying their best to keep people alive. And yes, it's just been the most strange year so far, and it gets stranger, it feels, by the week. But I've done a lot of reading, a lot of gardening like you, not very much work, in fact, no work for the last 3 months.
Speaking of, you know, not that, you know, I want to complain, because I think because we're a little bit older than the generation who is doing freelance work, with some of them are very young, you know, we have a little bit of a cushion financially. But I tell you what, most of the freelancer, and, you know, it's something that, you know, we have to respect, and a lot of them in different countries pretty much had no income whatsoever. I'm very lucky here. Just, you know, today finally received some unemployment as a self-employed person. I was able to get this in the United States. I think there is a reason for it, and some of it might be because somebody is trying to get reelected, so trying everything to do so. But anyway, let's not go too much in politics, because we could get very irritated at some point with what's going on in the world. But I think self-employed, you know, I feel for the youngsters out there who really had no income, and I'm not sure how they, you know, they went by.
I know. I mean, it's been a strange few months for everybody, and I guess tennis players are not immune from this either. You know, their whole routine has ground to a halt. They had to lock down in various parts of the world, make a decision on who they were going to be with, where they were going to locate themselves, what kind of training program they might have. I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, Sophie, because as an ex-player, you will understand better than anyone the physical requirements, never mind the mental side of it, in terms of how you prepare yourself for the season in the off season, and then how things tick over when the season is ongoing. But this is like something that players have never faced before. So how tough will it have been?
Well, I think it all depends. You know, you have to put the mental part in it, because it all depends of what kind of a person are you. Are you looking at, you know, the glass half full or the glass half empty? And most players are looking at glass half full, because if you're not positive in playing tennis and in performing, you know, you, even if you're faking it in ways that you put your mind into that positiveness, you're not going to be at the top. It's very difficult. So I think that, you know, if it had happened when I was playing, I mean, first of all, it's similar to me. The most similarity in that situation was being injured. You know, when you're injured, you're out. But the difference is that everybody's injured. So think about this. So everybody's injured, but, you know, injured per se, but everybody has a chance to reflect. And even though they didn't know how long that was going to be, they knew it was going to be at least 2-3 months. So they knew that they had the chance to improve. They had the chance to make improvement in their game. And I think that as a tennis player with a season that we have, which really gives you 3-4 weeks maybe of really the off season at the end of the year, to work on things, changing grips, very difficult. Changing your technique, very, very difficult, because then you move into tournament and you have to apply the technique you've worked on, but guess what? It's not there yet. As with 2-3 months doing it, where you're not in tournament with that pressure and the feel of losing points, etc. I think, you know, I hope that some of them are going to come back with, and we're going to see those changes. And that's what I've been looking for, you know, even right now that we have somewhat of some tournaments going, not tournaments, but events going on. And it's very interesting. And the fact that it happened kind of like a couple months in the season is very different, because they were already coming back from the off season. We already saw a lot of players having made, you know, some adjustments and changes, and some get better shape, some still injured. So I think for the injured player, it's only going to help him more, because nobody is playing out there. And, you know, if I am somebody like Andreescu, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, in a way, this was probably the best thing that could happen to me, because I have more time without the players getting better on match play, at least. So,
Two things strike me. So sorry to interrupt, darling. Two things strike me about this. That you mentioned it's like an injury layoff. That's a kind of closest approximation you can make to this amount of time away from the court. I guess with an injury, you have a target that you set in the sand. You look at the calendar and they say you have an ACL. That's 6 months. You have 6 months, and you're rehabbing, and you have surgery, then you rehab, and you're working your way back. So it's a fixed target, whereas the comeback here has not been fixed. It's kind of constantly slipped away.
true.
So that side of it is tough. And also, you alluded to it in your answer there, the mental side of it, it's not the same. Practice, practice, practice is amazing, but nothing can replicate a tight match situation. And that is going to be a real test for the players when they come back, isn't it?
But I think also, if you see any player who's not in shape, they have no excuse. Because most of them, to begin with, were at home and could not, go anywhere than maybe in their garage. You saw people hitting against the wall. You saw Alize Cornet jump roping on the bottom, at the bottom of her apartment building. I mean, I think that if you don't come back in better shape, then there's a problem to me, because that's all they could do. All they could do is work on their bodies and speed and strengthening and core, those things. And most of them, a lot of them can be done without going to a gym, without having to really go really far. So the access to tennis was not there. So then they had that where they could change and maybe improve, some of their strokes. But physically, I think, all of them should be really in amazing shape.
Who do you think are going to be the biggest winners and losers from this shutdown? I mean, you mentioned Andreescu as possibly a winner because it gives her a chance to really recuperate her body after the long-standing injury issues that she's had. I mean, Serena, you would think, has been a loser because of the time lost. Wimbledon obviously not happening this year. That would be one of her big chances to try and equal the record. Venus as well, I guess, because the march of time is relentless and inexorable, and she's just passed her 40th birthday. What do you think?
Yeah, but you also look at the fact that for Serena, for example, I think that she could get in better shape, and I think that really time might be really helpful for her. And plus, I think you can't really put a price on how much mentally staying in one place with your family, with your daughter, with your husband is really going to make yourself appreciate, everything in life. That's the way that I think. I mean, I'm looking at it that way. I mean, I was, with my partner for a much longer time than I've ever been. And, we got closer and we learned a lot of things about each other in a good way. And I think for Serena, it's the same thing. And plus you saw it. You saw how happy she was. I mean, you saw those videos, you had to see them with Olympia. I mean, that was so cute. And even, with her husband, I mean, I thought, so I think Serena, I'm not worried about the age factor because again, nobody's playing. So it's not like they're getting better. And they're like, you looking at, if you play a Halep that's, let's say hypothetically that she would have won like 3 tournaments, then coming into Wimbledon, a big threat, I mean, we don't know where everybody's going to be, but we know that those players have the potential of playing the best tennis and create, so many opportunities. So I don't think the age, because, you're 40, you're 39, you're 41, you're 42, there's no difference. I don't think at this stage there's any difference.
And I guess as well, you mentioned the fact that there is an opportunity to base yourself. I mean, the life of a tennis player is out of a suitcase, as you said at the start. The chance to base yourself at home is a really good one. As you say, that's really good for morale, but also for Serena, I mean, if you ever wanted a statement of intent from a Grand Slam champion extraordinaire, the fact that she has got the same court that they're going to use at the US Open, the change of surface at the US Open for the very first time in a long time, over 40 years, and Serena asked for the same surface to be delivered to a court at home so she could practice on that. If you ever need any statement of intent from someone like that, that just shows excellent, and the pursuit of excellence is still there very much, isn't it?
Yeah, that shows that, and that shows money. Let's not forget it, because I can tell you that 99% of the players would like to have the same exact thing happen to them. Hey, yeah, ship me that court, because you know what? I want to. I want to.
I want to practice.
You know, I mean, think about it. It shows that, you know, it's great to have money, and it does bring a lot more possibilities to create perfection and to create opportunities, because that's what she's doing. She's putting everything on her side to create more opportunities for her to win the U.S. Open. U.S. Open that we hope, I'm crossing my fingers, because God forbid, I hope I can start working again as I miss it. I'm commentating. Sometimes I find myself so bored that I look outside and I see a bird. I say, oh, look at that bird going from one branch to the other. Look at it. It is beautiful. It is very stable, balanced.
Yeah.
Okay. Cuckoo. Anyway, so thinking about, you know, I think Serena Williams is doing everything she can, and I hope the U.S. Open is there. And you have to think of also is that it might be even more chances for her, because the field might not be as full, because we don't know if players like at first was saying that she wouldn't come, then went back into her decision, kind of thinking of, you know, because to tell you the truth, nobody can tell. I think that what needs to happen is to know when the threshold is and when the deadline is for everybody to commit. But even if they commit, if a week before they feel like it's not comfortable, they're not going to travel. And you have to understand that. It's understandable. So, but if it happens, you know, and the field is even less than what it is normally with, you know, competition, I mean, yes, of course, you know, Serena Williams is definitely right there.
She certainly is. I mean, the start of the resumption, I should say, of the WTA season is in Palermo at the very start of August, and then it is a packed schedule, isn't it, for the next 2 or 3 months as they try and rescue as much of the season as possible.
Right, and I was looking at this schedule, and you know, I have to say that you have to look at it and have a little bit of a smirk smile, because when you look at the fact that Wuhan is on the schedule, which, you know, it's probably the safest place to go today, but really, are the players going to take a chance to go to Wuhan with where the pandemic started? And then, you know, Beijing is on it, and even Shenzhen is on it in China. I mean, those are big question marks. So I think that it's impossible to know and predict, because every single day since the beginning of this pandemic, things have changed. Every day.
They have. So, but I mean, things changed last week, didn't they? We saw you talked about the US Open, and all of the dominoes have to fall into place in exactly the right way for everything to go ahead as planned. But we saw, didn't we, with Novak's Adria Tour, that things can go badly wrong if perhaps the discipline isn't there in terms of everything that's required with this pandemic.
Look, we talked about it offline, the two of us, and, you know, your point and my point, I mean, I think, you know, when I was saying, you know, I think in a way I feel like it's better to wait next year for anything to happen, because you're putting so many people at risk. But then you counter that by saying, yeah, but so it's going to be the same until there's a vaccine, and until we know that, you know, this pandemic is controlled. It will be the same in January and in February. So what do? We don't play until March, April. People have to go back to work. Yes. So I think that, you know, and I hope that it stays that way, as safe as the Ultimate Tennis Showdown has been, which we can talk about from Patrick Mouratoglou, who's been doing an unbelievable job. But I mean, I hope nobody, you know, comes up to be positive, because Dominic Thiem, who was in that Adria Tour, came down and he's tested every day. But you know, it's bound to happen. I mean, it's the travel, you know, you're taking much, much more risks. And, you know, it's not like, it's such a scary virus, because nobody knows, and it's silent. So I mean, I think that it's such a difficult thing to think of. I mean, I would love nothing but having tennis back on. But talk about the Ultimate Tennis Showdown. I mean, I know we mostly focus on women's tennis, because, you know, I think we might do something about this later on, because even if it's women's tennis talk, and we started doing this about women's tennis, because really my knowledge about men's tennis at the time, I was not commentating enough. You have a lot more, you know, background in commentating on men's tennis, and maybe women's tennis talk will be just, you know,
tennis talk
with two women talking about it. Period.
Yeah, I know.
doesn't mean hosting. We might have guests at some point, but so we might broaden that. But that Ultimate Tennis Showdown, at first, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like so complicated, and I felt like tennis was kind of in the back burner. I felt like, oh, the excitement, the card you can put in, like those jokers that you get. But after watching it, I started to understand better the format. It got less complicated. And I have to say, and I have to give a really big, applaud to our friend, Pete Ogers, because Pete is one of the commentator. And let me tell you, it needed to have somebody excited, passionate, and with, translating the excitement of that. And it's not given to everyone. It's very difficult, especially when it's new.
Yeah.
He's doing such a fantastic job. I love the interviews. I think it's
that is my favorite thing. Pete won't thank me for this, for reminding him of this, but Stefanos Tsitsipas described him as Justin Timberlake yesterday.
I know, I said that to him about the first time I met him. I'm like, I gotta take
that conversation. I know, because he really does look like Justin Timberlake. He genuinely does.
Especially since he cut a little bit the beard, because the beard was
exactly.
I was looking more of at kind of like the Abraham Lincoln, look.
Yes.
And now he's much better. So I did send him a text yesterday saying, "Hey, good job on the beard."
But it's great to see that side of the players' personalities. I love the fact that you're getting these interviews at the change of ends. I mean, they've experimented that a little bit with the next gen finals, where you could hear the interactions with coaches, and they had a bit of fun with that over the last couple of years. But you feel like Mouratoglou is pushing the boundaries a little bit, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but change isn't always entirely welcome for some people at the start, but it's always a good thing, I think, to experiment with things. And listen, I've really enjoyed watching it.
I don't think it will replace tennis, but I think it would be a fantastic addition to tennis, because it's exciting. It's exciting for the young people watching. It's more, I mean, I don't want to say video game, but it has that kind of feel in some way, shape, or form. The tennis is fantastic as well. And really getting the inside of the coaching and also the players, I mean, has been really, really interesting. And they having, doing something similar in Charleston with the women's. And I mean, the setting in Charleston, the only thing that hurts me is to see those empty stands, difficult as UTS, the, Ultimate Tennis Showdown is a very well-known court. Same thing with the Brits, which doing on the court that has, it feels more quaint, let's put it this way. To have that empty stadium is really strange, but loving what's going on in Charleston. I mean, loving to see the ladies competing, and also fun interviews, and I have to give a kudos to Matek Sands. I have to say that this woman, and I said it about 4 years ago when she got injured and she started work with Tennis Channel. I said, this woman is going to be the best future for any broadcasting network, as far as a presenter, as far as an interviewer. She has charisma. She has a smile that is contagious, and a laugh that is so contagious. I would, if I were one of the network, I would start signing her up, for when she's done playing, if they haven't done so yet. Because, I mean, have you watched some of the pops? What was that, like the Canadian was on it? It was called something. It was ATP and WTA, and they converge. I mean, it was really funny. I mean, they had some great one.
And they've been producing some great content around it. I was watching the Monica Puig kind of tennis journey around Charleston, where she was talking about getting tested and the protocols that were in place, and sort of underlining the differences between the way it was, this last week, and the way it normally is at Charleston, of course, which is a very popular stop on the WTA tour. But so it's been fascinating to see how the players are adapting, and it's just shown the battle of the Brits here in the UK and the Charleston EXO there, that tennis can return. Because the sport itself is one of the safest in terms of social distancing that you can get. It's not like football or the challenges that rugby face right now. I mean, cricket is still struggling to come back because of the using the same ball and whatnot. But in that sense, it's one of the safest. But it's just the international travel element, and for all of and the numbers of people, of course. For all of Novak's good intentions, unfortunately, the social distancing wasn't there enough, it has to be said. Whereas at these tournaments, they've tried really hard to make sure it is there. And that hopefully, fingers crossed, is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense in so many ways. And what we saw of what happened, in the Adriatic, I was like, really? I mean, there's no way that the government's, rules right now are saying you can have 5,000 people in the stands. You can, play soccer, half naked and sweating, and you can go dancing. And I can't imagine that those were the guidelines that was there. But if they were, all he did was follow them. But even having a government saying those are the guidelines, I mean, we have a president here who said, don't wear a mask. Well, let me tell you, I wear a mask everywhere. I wear a face shield on top of the mask when I go to the grocery store. And, I like to listen to scientifics and the scientists and people in the field. And when Fauci here, is saying you need a mask, when it just, I don't know, it's just common sense. And I think that it's unfortunate because what happened with that exhibition per se had all good intention to give back to, the money was all distributed to help, but
Yeah.
in the long run, that might have put in jeopardy the US Open was, or whatever tournament we're starting with, which is, I think, Palermo. And yeah. And so it's scary. And, we have to think about what are they thinking now, because especially the US Open, they're saying that they're going to allow players to stay in Manhattan now if they have private residencies. And you can't control. Yeah. At first they were saying they're all staying at the TWA hotel that is right next to the US Open site, the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center. And now it looks like they're allowing, so you don't know what they're doing. You don't know who's there. Is our parents there? And did they go out? Do they go eat? And I mean, you don't know. You can't control. And it's difficult already to control if you have them all in one place. But can you imagine if there is that? So, speaking of New York, look at that painting. That's all New York right here. Here, let me move it so you can see a little bit. Yeah, it's beautiful painting. And, I miss New York, but nothing, New York is never going to be the same. People from New York right now are buying property in Connecticut and elsewhere, and property are 50% higher on the real estate market because people in New York are trying to get out. So it's, life's going to change. And, hopefully we'll learn something as people, but hopefully also sports will come again. And I'm looking forward to, if it starts again, to see the US Open and then going to Europe for Madrid, Rome, French Open, Roland Garros. And then
that's going to be so strange, but so fabulous. Paris in the autumn rather than Paris in the late spring, to see, all things being equal and everything falls into place in the way that we hope it does.
Yeah, the good thing is they have a roof. Otherwise, that would never be considered. But but the tough thing you think about it is really those small tournaments. Those are the ones that are going to be the most affected. Are they going to be able to come back next year? Because the majors, except for the Wimbledon, which whomever did ask for a pandemic clause on their contract with the insurance company should have a raise and be, lifted up. I think that, all the other ones don't have that clause. And that means that right now, the US Open is fighting to make some money, but they will survive because they have, they have a way to recoup that money. But the small tournament, it's year after year. And we're talking, it's too much money to be able to come back and losing sponsorship and having a staff to pay throughout the year to to put the tournaments together. So it's going to be difficult to see what happened. But as many people are going to lose their job, I think there's going to be a lot of people losing their job also in tennis, and we might see some tournaments just gone. But hopefully somebody with money will take those.
What's your gut feel, Soph? Do you think, I think the French Open are planning to have a small number of spectators on site, aren't they? A small number. What's your gut feel about whether we're going to manage to get all these tournaments in? Do you think we'll be able to complete the season as it stands right now?
I think that I would say yes, if there are no spikes in the areas of what we're talking about. Like we're looking at the United States right now, we are in such deep problems in Texas, in Arizona, especially Florida. They have spikes. So imagine if that happens for whatever reason in New York. That would be the end of it. And I think it's
Yeah.
same thing in France. France, could have another spike as well if they're not careful. A lot of people in the States opened up way too close, way too fast, and they're paying the price for it right now. I mean, it's very sad because that means they're going to be not only infected people, but a lot more death. And that's that's so hard, very hard. So I think it's all about that. I mean, and if there are no spike, I see the US Open happen. I think the one really question mark I would have would be Asia because of the players. I'm
Yeah.
not sure the players will choose to travel, even though it might be the safest place. Because, in China, we never really know exactly the reality and the numbers. We know
Yeah.
what they want us to know. It's always difficult to gauge, but I know that the WTA is and the ATP are not crazy. I mean, they're gonna, they don't want to put in jeopardy any players. So it's the unknown, really. It's the unknown.
Well, I would have been joining you this year in New York, Soph, after
So
missing it last year with my broken leg and missing it the year before with my visa problems. But now it's taken a global pandemic to restrain me here in the UK, so I can't come over again for that very sensible reason, obviously.
Yeah.
But next year, my friend, come hell or high water, I will be there. I definitely will be there.
I sure hope so, because I was getting so excited about this, and I was getting excited about working with you on the Fed Cup, which now is completely canceled.
Yes,
And
we were
so
looking forward to that, weren't we, in Hungary? But that next year, my friend, that will happen
yeah.
again. And
There's Davis Cup, by the way, which
yes,
players felt like they did that so quickly and so soon, and not
yeah.
happy. But some of them are sending again the idea of, hey, since we're not doing it, let's go back to the old format. Well, there's a lot of talk about this, but just to finish up, I think I was excited. Watching a little bit of what was going on and what the players were doing. I mean, I mentioned Bethany Metexens, which with Vacek Pops. I mean, it was so funny. I mean, I liked the interviews. I think the comeback and seeing Andy Murray playing right now and playing well, moving well, is such a plus, and I sure hope that he's part of what the remaining, whatever season we have. I think what I'm looking for is to see if Rybakina, who was playing so well at the beginning of the year, is she going to come back and pick it up right there?
Yeah.
Ons Jabeur was also, in Dubai, had such great tournament and at the Australian Open. Those are the question mark to see, are these players going to come back and be as good as they were when they started, or they had plenty of time to get well, especially Ons Jabeur, who was fighting with a few injuries as well. Then I'm thinking also Jennifer Brady. Okay, we're seeing her in Charleston. I mean, how well is she playing?
Well, she was playing that kind of tennis in Dubai. We spoke about her, I think, last time we did a podcast, and how well she was playing, and that mighty forehand, and having changed. She was working with Michael Gesserer, having changed her preseason last year from Florida to Germany and tried different things. It just goes to show, doesn't it, how a change of routine or a change of coach or a change of approach can make such a difference.
Yeah, and we talked about it, you're right, in the last podcast, and I said that to me it was one of the most amazing transformation physically. I mean, she really, became so much more fit. You can tell that she is really in the top athletes, shape. And you're right, going to Germany instead of, I mentioned it, he said, you're going to Germany, foreign country, where it's cold, where everybody else is, working out in November, December time before the season starts again, and doing their, their preseason in, beautiful places, Caribbean or whatever, closer to Australia, by Florida. And no, she went into Germany cold, and she put the work in. And you know what? Kudos. It paid off. And
Yeah.
I think it's then you appreciate a lot more, and it's so rewarding to be playing. I'm kind of repeating myself because that's what I said in the last podcast, but seeing the way she's playing in Charleston, that is telling me, so good stuff out there. Oh, one more thing.
Go on.
How about the Wawrinka and Benoit pair? Oh my God, you probably didn't watch. You couldn't watch it because it was in French. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
my friend, I would put my A-level French on the table and say I could follow a bit of it. It was hilarious.
Okay, I mean, Benoit Paire, you can say anything about the guy. I mean, yes, crazy man, but the talent of this guy and the fact that Wawrinka, they were exchanging of, their tennis and how one was, and Wawrinka tell you, well, your forehand sucks. I mean, okay, man. It's like, okay. And I mean, they were exchanging. And then, at one point I'm like, okay, those two are going to finish like alcoholic by the end of this. I mean, it's like drinking. I mean, we didn't even mention the cocktail hours because I had so many of them. But by the way, dropped 22 pounds during that COVID.
Good girl.
Yep.
Looking good stuff.
I started in January 19 before this all happened, but I have to say that I was that close to drinking every night. And I didn't, which for me, who loves food and loves to drink, it's an achievement. But Benoit Paire and Wawrinka, I cracked up a lot.
And Wawrinka's been hitting with Garbinier Muguruza as well, hasn't he, in Lake Geneva? Yeah, that's where she's been.
How bad is that?
Based. Yeah, I know. It's going to be so interesting to see, who slingshots out of lockdown really, really fast and hits the ground running. And that is one of the many things I cannot wait to see when we actually get proper tennis back.
And we didn't even mention the fact that we had, we kind of mentioned, well, we talked about the fact that we were going to talk about men's and women's tennis, but we didn't mention the fact that, there were rumors and they were trying, and the Federer, the Nadal, there's people saying, hey, why don't we merge? Have the ATP together. Billie Jean King has been, trying this since, well, God forbid, the 70s, and she got pretty much a door slammed at her. But you know what? I love that there's talk. I love that there are possibilities. I think that one voice would be fantastic. I still think that it has to be in a manner where each get the exact same exposure. That's going to be difficult because to me, exposure is everything for creating a brand and creating any kind of sports, tour. And the exposure is the same. I think it would be fabulous because today we don't have that. And that's why, men's tennis is probably, in a way, some people are saying that it's much more. And I still think it's because of exposure. If we were the exact exposure across the field, I think things would be different. But anyway, that was a lot of fun.
Wow. We could talk like that. We have so much we could talk about for the next hour or so, but let's just keep our powder dry until the next time we get together, which I think won't be too long away. And it'll be lovely to think that we can actually possibly start thinking about picking up our tennis microphones again. How good would that be?
Cross our fingers. Come on.
Oh my gosh, please. Sophie, it is a joy to see you again, my friend, and to catch up. I know we've been speaking a lot privately, but it's nice to do this publicly again and get back on the horse, as it were, with the podcast. So thank you so much for your company today. I have loved it. And we will talk again very soon, I know. And
hopefully,
take care.
Yeah, hopefully when it starts again. So thank you. Yes. And let's hope we're back and can commentate something else than the birds moving from one tree to the other. Ciao.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.